Well, we are seeing a really nice bounce from the price of BTC as it approaches $88,000. Where will it go next? Will it reverse back down to 84 to 85,000, or are we rallying back up to that $92,005 level? We have Magic and Money joining us to break down the Bitcoin charts. What is the structure of the chart telling us? We have some updates on the tariffs. What does it mean? We're going to look at macro a little bit. Also, we're going to talk about HBAR and what company has just applied for an HBAR ETF. Is it going to be bullish, or is it going to be something like we saw with Ethereum? We have some insight there. We're also going to look at AAVE and what they're doing to make the AVE network more secure and more financially beneficial to hold their token. Should you be buying AVE now? I know it's one of the few altcoins that has actually been rallying. And finally, one country has capitulated on their plans of buying Bitcoin. Which one is it? What kind of effect it's going to have on the market? We have that and much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency content where we take that old, boring, and stale info and package that whole thing up fun, sexy way. You know what? We've had a interesting morning. We saw Bitcoin down to 82,000. We even saw it as low as 81,000 on a few exchanges. And here we are, knocking on the doorstep of 88,000. It is a nice, volatile morning today in the crypto land. Also, is it a coincidence that we went live at the same time that Bitcoin's having this big-ass breakout? You know,
you're welcome, guys. You're welcome.
I think not. You know, you might wonder why sometimes we go late.
They should be thanking us. You guys should be thanking us. Why are we wearing the same thing?
You have a polo on with that's great. I have a black.
It's a black polo. From Express.
Congratulations. There you go.
Anyway.
Wow. So I don't even know what I'm saying.
I don't know either.
Yes, we're both wearing black. Congratulations.
The reason we go live late.
Oh yeah, we're working on Bitcoin price.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was on the phone with the CEO.
Mm-hmm. So taking a look, man, what an interesting morning. There's been a big shakeup. AVE is up 13%.
Huge.
We saw, interesting enough, we saw Ethereum teeter-totting over here on teeter-totting, yeah, on that 2,000 mark. It held. There was a couple exchanges, the smaller ones that had it under 2K, but price never really dropped under $2,000 for ETH. Do you think that a sub $2,000 ETH is not really realistic? Because
it's definitely realistic.
I was thinking myself, I was like, you know what? I'm looking for an $1,800 Ethereum. I think that's probably one of the
always do that, Rob.
And one of the greatest trades ever, right?
You always do that. You wait for a 30-cent Cardano, you get a 32-cent Cardano.
Sometimes I get it though. It doesn't always happen. Here's the thing. You know what? If you look for a price, if you're looking for a price and it doesn't get there, it is what it is. But when you do look for a price and it gets there, then you know what?
It's
well deserved, right? You know what? I still like. I was looking back. The last time ETH was at $2,000
was in 2022.
The 2023 December, right? And so since December of 2023, Bitcoin has where was Bitcoin at in 2023?
It was not at 2,000.
No, I mean. You know, in December of 2023, Bitcoin was at $40,000. So Bitcoin's 2x, and ETH is not 2x. So,
listen, man, you want to talk about stable assets?
The reason I keep bringing this up is that I think that slowly over time, what you see is that you get a smaller and smaller divergence on Bitcoin and ETH. The dominance keeps falling. And for myself, I just look at it like here, these are subtle, but over time it compounds, right? So take a look. Right now, Bitcoin's flat. It's up 0.24%, not much, right? But ETH is down 1.5%. And so if you do that this week and then the following week and the following week and the following week, we'll see a $100,000 Bitcoin and maybe a $2,300 ETH. And so the problem is that just over time, it's just losing dominance slowly. Also, the Lazarus group, they laundered, they switched over all their ETH. So it was, what was it? I think in total they converted over $1.1 billion. I know that the full heist was
More
1.
than that.
No,
I
the
think
full
ETH
heist
was 1.3 billion.
Yeah, but they some of it got frozen. But the swap, the swap that's on chain, right? How much ETH got moved over to Bitcoin was 1.1 billion.
So you think ETH had kind of a black swan and should be higher than where it is now? Kind of sounds like what you're saying.
Well, I mean, $1.1 billion in ETH just got sold by North Korea. It's not a non-factor, that's for sure. I just don't know how big of a factor is it. That had some downward pressure, I'm sure. I mean, you look here. I mean, ETH's down 11% on the week, and yet Bitcoin's up 0.7, right? So Bitcoin's flat, but ETH's still down over 10%. XRP obviously has a little bullish narrative with the strategic reserve. It's down a lot, man. What a nice performance out of Hedera.
HBARs.
Lots
of green bars, handlebars.
So Hedera, this is something that's not slowing down. We're bullish here. I mean, there's no shortage of Hedera videos coming out of our camp, and for a reason, right? Look at the 1 week. Out of all the bad news we've heard all week, all of that price swings at the downside, Bitcoin losing 100K, 90K. Look at Hedera. Looking good, man. The pullback
juicy.
And so this is without the narrative of it being in a strategic crypto reserve, which I think will happen. I wouldn't be surprised to hear about this on Friday, which, by the way, tell them who's joining the party on Friday.
Well, number one, JP Richardson, the CEO of Exodus, said he got an invitation. You also have Matt Huang, the CEO, founder of Paradigm. I'll be attending the White House Digital Asset Summit. And then, of course, Mr. Michael Saylor has been invited. I want to share this clip of Michael Saylor talking about the strategic reserve. And I was actually a little surprised at his comments here. Let's take a listen.
So were you surprised that in the announcement over the weekend, the president mentioned other smaller coins like XRP, Solana, and Cardano, as well as Bitcoin for the strategic crypto fund?
I'm not surprised. I think there's no way to interpret this other than this is bullish for Bitcoin and is bullish for the entire U.S. crypto industry. There are conservatives that view the right path forward as just a Bitcoin-only policy because Bitcoin is a commodity, an asset without an issuer, a neutral asset, and there's no controversy. But the president's adopted a more liberal economic policy, and that's his right. He's president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you would have preferred it, though, if it was a Bitcoin-only fund.
I believe that the best thing for the country is to move forward with an enlightened, progressive policy toward digital assets. I think it's worth $100 trillion to the United States, and ultimately there's four different assets that people need to come to grips with. A digital commodity like Bitcoin, an asset without an issuer, backed by digital power. A digital currency like a stable coin backed by a fiat currency equivalent. A digital security, an asset with an issuer backed by a stock or a bond so we can tokenize Wall Street. And then a digital token, which is an asset with an issuer that's backed by digital utility. I think everybody's trying to come to grips with that taxonomy. And as the market gets more educated, we're going to see more progressive, constructive policy engagement.
I don't know about you, but when the question was asked, you would like to see a Bitcoin only, right? I expected him to say, yeah, of course, yeah, but Michael Saylor becoming a shitcoiner, Robin.
Yeah, he's intelligent.
No, I mean, he's a businessman.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like he's not going to sway the president's decision.
But he's going to the meeting. He's going to try.
I don't think in a meeting he's going to try to, like, honestly, like, I don't see, if you're in Michael Saylor's perspective, and if you were in a seat, why would you go to a crypto meeting and talk negatively about crypto? You don't want to bring any negative, there's already a negative connotation to crypto. So why delay and go back to the whiteboard on a strategic reserve? Right now, imagine if Saylor, let's just say, like in your scenario, like, well, he's going to the meeting, and he's going to talk crap about. Like, I don't think so, because even if he did,
Not what I've said.
but what I'm saying is that even if they decided, okay, we're going to do Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. Let's just say Saylor woke up, was like, I can't have those there. Then whatever progress they've already made with altcoins, they got to go back. They got to go start from scratch again, right? They got to say, okay, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's do Bitcoin only. Well, what are we going to do about the altcoins? We've already made promises. We've already created a structure. We've already advised the SEC that we're going to do that. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're already going this direction. It's already been decided this is what the U.S. wants to do. It's already been decided this is what Donald Trump wants to do. So why try to reverse it, right? Why try to stop that? Bitcoin's already in there. It's not like the U.S. isn't going to buy Bitcoin. So back in December, when we had the Biden administration, there was no talks of Bitcoin. If anything, we were moving Bitcoin from the Marshall's wallet over to the exchange, and everyone's talking about them selling. So we went from an environment where we could have been perhaps selling the Bitcoin to now we're buying Bitcoin for the U.S. And you know what? We're buying other stuff too. So it is what it is. And at the end of the day, like, you can disagree with the internet. You can say, hey, you know what? The internet is bad, but there's good parts of the internet. We'll keep the email, but we don't like the websites. Like, that's not how it works. You want to adopt the internet, you take it all. Same thing with crypto. You can sit here and say, hey, look, you know what? Google searches and email is the best part of the internet. We like that. That's where the real use case and utility comes into the internet. Then someone's like, well, what about porn websites? You can't have porn. You can't have porn. You can't have you can't do MP3s because those are copyrighted. These musicians, you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna lose money. Like, we can't have that either. If you remember back when the internet first started, people didn't want certain parts of the internet.
They wanted porn.
No, I'm serious. People were trying to pick and choose what parts of the internet they would allow. Is that any different than where we're at now? You can't sit here and say, hey, I want Bitcoin. I want the U.S. to invest in Bitcoin, but not in the other parts of crypto.
Damn it, Robin. I agree.
And so at the end of the day, intelligent people like Michael Saylor, they understand that, right? Now, Saylor is not going to turn around and go buy XRP. I don't think he's going to, like, go on some podcast to tell you how it moves at the speed of light, and it's a no-brainer to get it. But realistically, he doesn't need to. In the same way, Saylor isn't sitting here telling you that the stock market should be shut down. He might not be buying stocks. He might not be buying the S&P 500. He might not purchase any stocks, but he understands it's a product that people want, and you can't stop people from buying it. Same thing with crypto. He personally prefers Bitcoin over all the other cryptos. But you know what? You let in one, you got to let in them all. You're going to start the internet. You can't just let in Google searches and email. You got to let the porn in too. And the Craigslist. And the MP3s.
Some places they don't let you watch porn. RIP to those places. It's a joke. All right. We got our man Magic and Money joining us. Magic, you've made it on the big board, my friend. How does it feel? You're famous now.
Yeah, I was just having a good laugh because, Rob was bringing up some good points, though.
Which points specifically? Magic, what a bipolar market we have, huh?
Yeah. Standard. I was a standard. This is the cycle of bipolar. We'll just call it the bipolar cycle. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the best way to describe it.
Someone get Bitcoin some meds because this shit's getting crazy. All right, Magic, if you want to queue up a Bitcoin chart, I'm just going to share some headlines here. Now, you might be wondering, why are we seeing such swings? Well, today was the day that some tariffs went into play. Mexico, Canada, China. I believe 25% across the board. Maybe China was only 10. Rob, do you know that number? China
it was
10.
China had already had tariffs in place.
U.S. added 10% on top of the 10.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage was before, but
It was 10.
Okay, so they've added 10% to whatever it was previous.
And then Mexico, Canada are now at 25%. Anyways, the tariff turmoil has sparked $1 billion in liquidations. We also had this as well. Mexico's president Sheinbaum shares countermeasure plans for Trump tariffs. And then you have Canada doing the same thing, and then Trump, posting on X, please tell Trudeau that when he puts retaliatory tariffs, we also will up the tariff amount. Then you had this as well. The S&P officially erased. Now I know it's bounced back since this post here from about 45 minutes ago. Has officially erased entire gains since election, wiping out $3.4 trillion in value. Then you had this from Eric Voorhees. A lot of talk about macro, and actually. And to those of you that were on my PM stream yesterday, this is exactly what I talked about. If government spending is actually reduced, then GDP will fall, right? The formula for GDP is consumer spending, investment, government spending, net exports. And if one of those falls, it brings down the entirety of the percentage. And so if government spending is falling, then of course it's going to affect the GDP numbers. And so I think the markets are overreacting. But markets always overreact. Anyways, with that being said, Magic, feel free to comment on anything I just shared. And then let's look at a Bitcoin chart. And are we this trip back up to 92? Looks like we're kind of heading there. What are you expecting? What are some key levels that you think are important to retake for Bitcoin?
Sure. And I do agree with you about government spending. We live in an inflationary society that if they cut all inflation and money printing, it's actually going to be negative. It's bad for what they've got in place and system. So
I agree.
Anyway, moving on. Bitcoin must hold pivot zone. We'll call it the pivot zone because we're going to be mature about it. It's been the area we're looking for, 80,000 to 83,000. You can see you've got a nice wick beneath it. Not out of the ordinary. If you guys recall, we were talking about a completely different setup on the quarterly, where we said the average would say that it hits about 81, which obviously it exceeded it, but it could go as low as like 76, 75,000. So you're looking for this region to hold as support. And so far, it's doing just that. It's doing what it needs to do. So do we need to see 92 recovered? Yeah, in the short term, absolutely. But this rally can go quite high and do nothing. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but unless you can start making a new high here, above this like 96 to like $99,000, and I'm going to say zone, this area right here, it's really accomplished nothing other than not breaking down, which I really want to reiterate. That's not a bad thing, but it's not inherently bullish either. This is comprised of two high time frame averages, as you guys know. It's a yearly and a 6-month average, and then we use those in coordination with each other post halving to determine if we're in a bull market or not. But one thing I wanted to do is kind of just go back and reiterate, when you're above these levels, typically the trend is good. And the last time we really kind of, played around with them was back here when the bull market was just getting started. And you can see this is the yearly and this is the 6-month at that time, and that you've really chopped around it, but you didn't really do anything of consequence in terms of losing it. I think a weekly chart would probably be the best way to view it. And as long as we're holding this area and not breaking down, that is not bad for Bitcoin. It doesn't mean it's bullish. It just means not bad, because below this zone is 68 and then 52,000 respectively. So it is one of those things where if the market is going to continue, this is the area I've said I'd be interested in bidding. And I have. Same with Ethereum. We're going to talk about that one a little later, but picking up Ethereum under 2K was always kind of on the docket. We talked about it in the group. The lows were just kind of ripe, I guess, to be swept, and they were, and that's the setup you're looking for. On this one, you really want to see this thing start, pushing above the current week's high. So if you were just to look at it through that lens, you could say that, today is Tuesday, yesterday is Monday when the week opened. I need to see this weekly candle positive. I need to see it above the Monday high, breaking, this trend of downturn. So you just mark out your weekly open, will probably be something of note to have on there, which is 94,236.50. That would be an early sign to me that it's going to at least challenge into this arena, and we can start talking about maybe even trying to make new highs above that, but you can't really until then. So as of right now, the bounces are just bounces. If you're an intraday trader, you like the volatility. But if you're looking for like certainty, people who are patient generally fare better. So, you can take that however you want, but you have to be able to put on risk at the same time. And so for me, I did put some risk on in this area. That was a good area that I've had mapped out for a while. So if it doesn't hold, my bull market thesis changes a little bit. We start looking at this as maybe the bear market has come early, but that's for later. Maybe we don't even get to have that conversation, which would be ideal. I'd like to see bags just go up.
Awesome, brother. Are you convinced with this rally, Magic? Just from us, I guess I know like charting and key levels, but are you convinced that this rally here, we're not going to give it back like we did? I called it the borrower's pump, right? The last one we saw literally gave back everything we took on Sunday plus some. Well, like what's your I guess, level of either concern
confidence?
Or yeah.
I'm confident in this because this trade setup that's printed here, which is just an SFP into this zone, I've seen it occur hundreds of times throughout Bitcoin's history, and it hits, and people aren't going to like to hear this, but it only hits at like a 44% win rate. But the wins are really big, so you end up with a very positive curve. So, I'd say you're literally at a coin flip in terms of the statistics of it. Now, do I think that this is going to rally? I think all indications are right now, market sentiment is pretty low. Things are resetting. The weekly has bounced since then, but when you go down to the weekly, you were coming into 46 at one point, and it's now pulling back. Obviously, this week isn't closed, so this will fluctuate. But this 46 level is something we've been looking for since we back tested the exponential in January. So on the RSI, so this is an area that typically is defended quite well in terms of like a momentum pivot. So there are some things to be said. So I would say, am I cautious? Yes. And the main reason I'm cautious is because if we were to go over to the BLX and go back to like if this was a traditional cycle and everything was equal in terms of time, like the last two have been, this little red zone that I have marked off here has typically been an area that I'm looking for downside, as you can see here, where it occurred slightly after. We've now hit into the zone and we're seeing it kind of play out. So it's just an area that I had marked off for that there could be a little bit of issue if price was coming into high time frame resistance, which it is. So now we're in a position of, hey, we have some must hold support in terms of at least one thesis that measures whether or not you're in a bull market or bear market. And since it's only one thing, should you put all your weight on it? No, but you should be ready to change that thesis if it changes, because you've only seen so many iterations of it, which is about 3 or 4. But yeah, so confidence wise, it's 50-50, and I'm going to trade. And the only trade available to me is a long right now, unless I see a good opportunity to short higher here. So confidence, 50%, coin flip. Okay. Nobody likes to hear that, but yeah, it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with honesty.
Just going to say it is what it is, right? Now let's talk about ETH. 2K.
Okay.
You said 2K. Rob was waiting for 1,800. I don't know if he's going to get there. You mentioned 2,000 as a great zone.
I was, it's not that I did. It's not that I thought that it was going to get there like with some kind of certainty. I just said it like, hey man, from a value perspective, if ETH were to drop down to 1,800, like what a buy. I feel like you're not going to get much more of a discount. That would be kind of like my lowest case scenario. But Bitcoin versus ETH just hasn't been good.
And also, Magic, we kind of talk, and just to preface for the new people that weren't here in the beginning of the show, but you guys got to remember, there was around well over $1 billion in ETH that was swapped out to Bitcoin from the Bybit hack. And so that's a lot of sell pressure there. Is ETH the best chart to long right now, Magic, in your opinion?
Is it the best chart? I think you've hit some pretty important levels, and you've got a very cool setup in place, a nice swing fail setup. So, best chart along. I don't know if I'd go that far, but is the only trade on the table along like Bitcoin? I think so, because you're at support. Unless you're going to be, what is that guy's name? The Korean trader that's like everyone counter trades Sato or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's king of shorting support. So. But this was something that we had marked off, and we were kind of discussing just loosely in the group a few weeks ago, I think. And I just said, hey, look at these lows, and you failed to take them time and time again. It's very likely that if we're still expecting Bitcoin to reach that 80K area, that we would see a sub $2,000 ETH. And what it did was it came back into some averages from 2023 and 2022, a 6-month level from 2022 and a yearly level from 2023. I've just kept them on the chart because they were so important on the way up, and they were perfect support on the way down after the SFP. So if someone was watching this, I'm going to get rid of these price notes now, and you're looking at these lows, you would say a really big sign of strength on like a weekly candle would be to continue to hold above somewhere around, I forgot there's an alert set to that too. About this Q1 low, somewhere around 2155. That's where you want to see this thing settling up. You'll notice that you've not closed a weekly candle below there. And that Q1 low is very relevant, because I've been mentioning this Q1 low from 2022 for years. And I've mentioned on your guys' show too, but this is when Putin actually started the war in Ukraine. That's what created these lows. So I've marked it off, and it's just been really good support and resistance, and a really good barometer for both altcoins and at one point Bitcoin, in terms of measuring, hey, is this, is it in an uptrend? Are we at resistance? Where are we at? We're above it. That's good. The moment we find acceptance below it, you can see that now you've got this whole structure here that's going to be need to be evaluated to see where you'd want to, look for positions if you were interested in buying again. But it would look bad. It would look like you were coming all the way back down below these levels. So this is good support. Good for a long. You still want to see $27.77 or $2,800 if you just like even numbers. This zone right here, very, very well defined on the weekly. If you go even further out on the monthly, you can see it. This is a big level here at the Q2 of 2024 low above here, and we can start having conversations about coming back above 3K even well into it, and maybe the move is underway at that point. But for now, with the bounce like this, you're probably going to want to do something local. I'd start targeting whatever intraday levels are inside of yesterday. So if you went down to like yesterday and you were looking for yesterday's point of control or whatever it may be, that's going to be where you want to hang your hat if you're looking for an early place to secure some profits, I guess. You'd want to break that down in that fashion and just say, is there anything left over from yesterday that I should be aware of? You can see that the point of control here, actually you're already above it. So you'd be looking to hopefully fill in this volume gap from the previous day. And if you can do that, that can put you back in like the 2,300 range. That's a good intraday trade. So if you got in right at the low, which every one of us wants to pretend that we did, unless you had limits there that actually filled, you probably didn't. So you'd be looking to lock in profits here at Q1, that low we talked about. That's very important on the high time frames, because if it does reject that and you see this thing start making its way below, this trade is going to be for nothing. But in reality, if you're looking at this from a swing perspective, yeah, you're going to want to play yesterday's range, see if you can get to that $2,400 level. Anything above the high that was made when the week opened here, which is pretty much right when it opened, because this whole weekly candle has been pretty bad. You want to see this thing get flipped positive. And if it does, I think you'll take these highs here and at least make an attempt above $2,800. But if it loses it, I mean, the targets below are bad. So at least you have some contingency of what you're going to do if you do dip below this, I will call it $1,950 to $2,000 zone. People should have a plan for either case, because it doesn't always work out. That's one thing I think people have learned this cycle more than others, or at least I hope.
There's a few predictable altcoins moving around, in tandem with Bitcoin, but there are a few outliers here. Hedera is one that we're really bullish on. We tend to put about one video a week out on Hedera. Just something at its core when it comes to utility. and what they're doing, something that we believe in. And so the market's really caught on to this one. If you look on what's happened really in this last 7 days, Bitcoin has been, up and down, but Hedera has held pretty damn strong, outperforming most of the altcoins during this last week with the volatility. And you know what? There's perhaps some rumors that they could be included in this strategic reserve for crypto in the U.S. And if that were to happen, I would expect a big boom here out of Hedera. I'd like to get your perspective on Hedera because internally we're bullish on it. So I don't know if I got a jaded opinion on it. Is the chart looking good? Do you think it's a little overheated? Because sometimes, the projects I love, I'm like, man, this one's look at it go.
I understand. We covered this one a while back, so I'm a little bit familiar. I'm remembering the analysis that we had before, for the context, is that we were looking for this push into these zones. We were doing a daily ellipsis to show like how important these boxes were that are derived off of high time frame averages. You filled in a 6-month NPOC, so we can get rid of that. You've come into resistance again, though. This blue box here at 29 cents and 29.9. I think said if we lost this blue box, we'd be looking to this blue box. So it did perform well if it didn't make that full retrace, as most of them probably do. Let's see where you're at. Yeah, you're right at the gold pocket. So if you're bullish on Hedera, you're probably not buying 29.30 cents right now. And the only reason is it's resistance. It's going to be a painful purchase. You might have to sit a while if it's going to, recoup here. So to me, I look at Hedera like this. This is a very aggressive run up out of this structure, which is fairly large. You've got a nice higher low in place. I would remain bullish on this one as long as it holds this box here, which is a dip below. But, you have to look at it as if this is putting in a new trend, off of this move, it's going to make a lower high first, which would, imply that this high right here is something that isn't going to be taken out again. So you want to see this area hold. And if it's broken, you can see
area. Is that around 21 cents? I'm assuming 20 cents, something like
that. No, that's your current low. It's actually much lower than that. It's 15.436 to 12.505. This area is fairly important to me just based on averages of price. And you can see it was a good high right here. So if price is above here, this is all consolidation. And, I'm not going to say all consolidation is good, but at least you've got a chance here to, one, buy at the lows of the range so that you can, somewhat buy intelligently if you're going to invest here. But also have an area that if it's lost, you go, okay, this could dump another 50% from here pretty easily back to like 8 cents. So I know that I should probably either A, be mentally prepared for that because I've made an investment thesis, or B, if I'm trading, I'm not just bag holding this down back into the range. So to me, I have no problems with this chart. I think it's making an attempt at some resistance here. It's a common retrace to the 618. Generally speaking, this is a short trade setup, but if people aren't looking for shorts, and you're looking for longs, I would just, hey, anything under probably 20 cents down into this, blue box is where I'm looking to establish positions on whatever entry trigger you're looking to utilize. Some people will utilize news. Some people utilize momentum indicators, whatever it is that has made you successful in crypto. Don't forget about that stuff when you get down here. Because if those things aren't present and it reaches this area, and let's say it just goes through it, but you just buy automatically, even though none of your entry triggers or things that would make you want to buy are present, then you're setting yourself up for some pain probably. So try to have somewhat of a plan, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with this chart. It's coming back to resistance. It really needs to break through it. The first attempt back at a resistance like this oftentimes is going to get a rejection. So the question is, off that rejection, are you going to continue to hold this higher low formation, or will you start breaking into this like old range, which you don't want to see? But if it does break this blue box, I'll say this, I think that the all-time high is likely going to be taken at a minimum. If you get through 34 cents, there's no reason you're not going to, attempt 57.6 to me. There's just nothing up here. So if you can live above this box, it's good for the asset.
57?
That's what I have here on this chart.
My God, you know what? Everything you said just went out the window, and I heard 57 cents. I'm messing with you.
Gotta love Rob. For me, Magic, my value area for Hedera I have is between 14 and 19 cents.
It's pretty spot on. A little bit wider of a channel than he said, but yeah pretty close.
That's kind of my.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. As long as you remain range bound up here, you can see when you made the all-time high, how well respected these areas are. If you were buying here, you were happy. But again, like I said, if you don't get entry triggers, like right here, no entry triggers, right? At this major support, what happened? So you just gotta, you guys know, but just for the audience, just because I give you a zone or, they give you a zone and it's been historically good, doesn't mean it's always going to remain that way. Just make sure you're putting some kind of plan together for yourself so that what makes you want to buy at those zones. And if you put yourself in a position to make intelligent decisions at important areas on the chart, generally you can relax a little more, and you'll enjoy the market more. That's for sure.
Amen to that.
That's, yeah.
Magic, as always, man, we truly appreciate it. We only have you slotted for 15 minutes, but we always keep you on longer because you're so damn good, man. We love having you on. Guys,
Bob Ross monotone.
If you guys want more Magic Internet Money, we're going to prompt his Discord link. Please go join it. I'm in there. There's a lot of good insight in there, a lot of good conversation, not just with Magic and his business partner, but with his entire community as well. And Magic's been coming on our show for a very long time. We love having him on. Magic, thank you as always, my friend. And we look forward to having you on again next week, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Take care, brother.
Thank you. All this ETH hate. Sometimes I gotta.
Says the guy. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm full of hate.
Okay,
yeah, ton.
Yeah, I can tell.
So I want to know where you, the viewer, kind of line up on ETH versus BTC.
Love ETH.
What do you think is a better hold over the next 3 months? I'm actually almost at an impasse here because I think that at some point the deviation is going to close. The
Sin City Crypto said ETH.
So I'm almost at an impasse. I still lean over the fact that even at its current prices, I still think that Bitcoin is going to outperform ETH over the next 3 months. But I want to know what you the viewer thinks. What's a better hold in the next 90 days? Is it buying ETH at its current prices at 88,000, or is it buying ETH at $2,200? Which one's a better hold? One, if you prefer Bitcoin at this current prices, and two, if you prefer ETH at the current prices, which one would be better return on investment over 90 days?
So
I want to know. Please, you, viewer.
I'm going Ethereum. What do you
pick a number? I still say Bitcoin.
I look at it as, okay, we talked about.
But when it was 20, when Bitcoin was at 90,000 and ETH was at like 25, 26, I was like, bro, I can't do it. But now that ETH sold off, I'm like, you know what? Probably gonna be a correction, probably a rally out of ETH at some point. But
that Bybit selling, man, those hackers, that's not a small amount of money. That's a large amount of money. And so I think that was part of ETH was going down. For 90 days, I think ETH outperforms Bitcoin. Yeah. What does the chat think? 1 was Bitcoin, 2 was ETH, right?
Yeah. So far, we got a couple ones and a few twos. Come on, chat, where are you at? We got like 500 people watching.
Where's the chat? Also,
got at least a couple hundred people replying. 1 for Bitcoin, 2 for ETH. What do you think is going to be a better return over the next 90 days?
Also, let's hit the like button as well. Thank you very much. Also, big thank you to our channel sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by none other than Legacy Network and the Legacy Academy app that has been live on the Apple and Google Play stores. Their token, the LGCT token, which went live about a month and a half ago, has been outperforming almost everything. And you can earn said token in the Legacy Academy app for free. So, no brainer. You learn, you earn. Download the app. There's a link in the description if you want to join their Telegram. Big thank you to Legacy, one of our longest standing channel partners. All right. Rob, we're going to Vietnam. Why? The Prime Minister has ordered the Ministry of Finance and State Bank of Vietnam to create cryptocurrency legislation this month. Now, all jokes aside, right? When you talk about superpowers, no shot at Vietnam with Vietnamese people. Vietnam is really not really one economy you really think of, right? But is this the trickle-down effect of what we're seeing from this administration in the United States? And I think it's only a matter of time before it's not a smaller economy, it's a top 5 economy. It's a top 3 economy. What are your thoughts?
Vietnam's economy is going to become one of the strongest in the region because of crypto.
That's not what I said. Can you pay attention when I ask a question for once in your life? You have no idea what I said, do you?
You said, it's not a top economy, but will it be a top economy?
No, that's not what I said. I said, we got news, although Vietnam is not a top economy, is this a precursor for seeing top economies? Not that Vietnam's going to become one.
Am I?
Yes, you
Did
are.
you hear the same thing I heard?
You're retarded. My question was, Vietnam is not a large economy, but it's adopting this. Will we see a larger economy like China or Russia or Japan or South Korea? Is this a precursor for those economies to now do what Vietnam is doing?
Hey, Robert, all I heard is Vietnam is part of G7 now.
Rocco, you're so...
Okay. That was the most long-winded question.
Says the long-winded
Just say, hey,
champion over here.
Vietnam starts a what is it? A Vietnam.
Okay, sorry, let me bring the vernacular down.
Vietnam started
Allow me to dumb it down
crypto
for you.
program.
Hey, Robin,
is China
do
going to
you
follow?
think that Vietnam will also other countries? Okay, seriously though, we see Vietnam. Do you think this is because what's happening in the U.S. with Trump? And are we going to see more countries that have a bigger impact economically currently do what Vietnam's doing?
I don't think anybody's paying attention to what Vietnam's doing. I'll be honest with you. It's same way that like.
I quit.
What?
I quit.
You're at, okay. Do I think China is like, oh my God, look at Vietnam. We need to go buy. Okay, so what's the question, bro?
Okay. Do you think this is happening because of what we're seeing in the U.S.?
I think that it's just the global idea is that Bitcoin is getting adopted. I don't think the U.S. is a player. The EU, some people are bullish on it, some are not. It's pretty obvious that we're going to launch a strategic reserve. Other countries are going to follow suit. It's just we're onboarding in the same way that like you go to work back in 2016, there was 1 or 2 crypto people. You go to work in 2020, there's 10 or 15 crypto people. And you're going to go to work in 2030, and there's going to be 40 or 50 crypto people. It's just what happens. I don't think that the one crypto guy that's been over here beating his drum talking about like, hey, I'm buying crypto is all of a sudden convinced everybody to buy. People one by one have decided to adopt crypto or buy Bitcoin or buy meme coins or whatever it is. Slowly, people start to open up to the idea that it's not fake. And you know what? As more people get onboarded, then others around them do the same thing. And is it influential that the U.S. is doing it? Yes. Is that the only factor? Is it a copycat like the U.S. is doing it, so we have to? No, I would argue that Vietnam probably is taking a stance on crypto because of neighboring countries. I think the fact that you have Singapore and Hong Kong, and you also have Korea and other nations in the same geopolitical area onboarding crypto services to their governments and economies is a no-brainer. I think the biggest factor for South America to have a crypto-friendly policy or to buy Bitcoin or whatever it is because other nations down there are doing it. And I think that Brazil and Colombia and Argentina aren't looking at what China's doing with crypto. They're looking at what their neighbors are doing. And so my opinion is I think Vietnam is doing what other nations in the area are doing. The same way that if we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, pretty sure Canada will do one pretty quickly there as well. I think Mexico will also jump on board. I think they'll be the first nations to get on board because they're our neighbors. And so they tend to share the same kind of ideologies that we have. And so that's my opinion.
So you think the U.S. has no sway in what Vietnam is doing or what China does or what Russia does?
Did I say it has no sway? I just said I think.
You're saying you think it's what their neighbors are doing?
I think that people are paying attention to what the U.S. is doing. I'm not saying they're not. The U.S., yes, is very influential. Mm-hmm. But I also think that is not the only factor. If you listen to what I'm saying, it's not the only factor.
Listen to what
but
you're
there are other nations in the area that also are very influential. Just like I'm pretty sure if El Salvador's neighbors are probably more aware of what El Salvador is doing with crypto than they are with the U.S.
I disagree there. The U.S. is the largest voice economy in the world. Everyone pays attention to what the U.S. does.
There's more internationally than the U.S. I know you think that every person around the world is looking at CNN and looking at U.S. economies, but I'm pretty sure that if you are a neighboring country to El Salvador, you probably have talked amongst your friends or in some circles like, hey, El Salvador is I'm buying Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure they're not really understanding what's going on in the U.S. politics, what's getting bought, that they added XRP to strategic reserve. People in South American countries probably aren't up to beat with that. I mean, even Americans are barely understanding what's going on. They just know Trump launched a meme coin and he talks a lot about crypto, but I don't even think Americans understand what's going on in crypto. We do because we're in these little circles here, but a lot of times I have conversations with people and I'm like, hey, we'll talk about crypto. And I'm like, dude, the rush is coming. Like Bitcoin's price is going to, well, why? I'm like, well, the US is about to buy Bitcoin. They are? Like, they don't even know. Like, how many people have you talked to that have no idea what's going on in crypto and they live in the United States?
You're talking about retail. I'm talking about governments. Anyways, this was pretty big news. The SEC has officially dropped this lawsuit against Kraken. This was centered around Kraken staking. And so will staking come back and what kind of impact will that have? On to some Hedera news, and then I'm going to share a video from our Treasury Secretary and what their plan is. So Grayscale pursues their 6th altcoin ETF as NASDAQ seeks to list the HBAR fund. Grayscale is pushing forward with its offerings for altcoins, filing for approval of a new Hedera ETF. Now, you would assume that Grayscale already has a Hedera trust, but I looked and they don't. They do not have an HBAR trust. This is from the Grayscale website. And so what does that mean? That means that it's not going to be, oh, we're taking our trust and turning it into a spot ETF. It's going to be, it got approved. We got to go out and buy some HBAR now. So I think out of all the ETF applications, I think that Hedera could be in a unique position because of this reason to not see a lot of outflows when it first goes live, like we saw with Bitcoin, like we saw with ETH, and I think like we're going to see with XRP and with Solana. Any commentary here before I move on?
No.
All right. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, talking about bringing interest rates down.
Congratulations again. We've been talking for about a year and a half about your visions on the economy. So far, what do you want the president to include in his speech from your department?
Well, Brian, President previewed his speech with some of the cabinet members yesterday, and he's got so many accomplishments. On the economic side, I think thus far, one of the biggest wins for the American people is since Election Day and since inauguration, mortgage rates have come down dramatically. Both the level of the 10-year bond and the spread between the 10-year and mortgage rates, which I think is an effect of the bank deregulation we're going to do. So that, I anticipate.
Does that affect credit cards too?
Well, the interest rates will affect credit cards. It'll affect auto loans. And the bottom 50% of Americans over the past 2 years have gotten crushed by these high interest rates. So we're set on bringing interest rates down. And I think that's one of the great accomplishments so far.
And also, when you talk about energy, you guys are doing this, making it clearly a focus. Is the market looking at what you plan to do with energy and reacting on the promise of what you're doing? Because you've only been there, 7 weeks?
Yeah, so Brian, markets live in the future. There's a futures curve, and the market understands President Trump's plan for energy dominance. And the Secretary Burgum, Secretary Wright, the super strong members of the cabinet are following President Trump's priority for drilling, unleashing U.S. energy, crude oil, natural gas. We're going big in nuclear. And we are going to, it's going to.
I'm going to pause this real quick. I think he brought up a very important point. He mentioned the divergence between the bond, the 10-year bond, and the mortgage rates. And we know mortgage rates have been high. And so I decided to research how many homes were bought between 2022 and 2024. Okay. Why that time period? That was when interest rates started going up. Okay. 700,000 homes. Now, why is that important? When the interest rates drops, more specifically, the mortgage rates drop, all those 700,000 home buyers in 2022 to 2024 are going to now be able to refinance from, let's say, 6-7% down to, let's say, 4%, which sounds like a small number, but that is massive. It does one of two things. It brings the payment down. Also, it allows the option of a cash out refinance. So padding people's discretionary income, putting large chunks of money into 700,000 potential home buyers from that time period. And so that's the other big thing. Once borrowing becomes cheaper, it benefits banks, it benefits the investors, it benefits the average person, and then being able to refinance something like a mortgage.
Do you think Donald Trump's going to pressure Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve to cut rates? Because right now, there's been almost like a clarification that the two are completely separate, or at least that's what Jerome Powell has said. Hey, we're an independent agency. We don't listen to the president, but we do respect what he says. But we make our own decisions. Do you think that Donald Trump maybe looks at the U.S. economy? It's obviously there's
a theory. The theory is they're trying to actively push the economy down to force Jerome Powell to cut interest rates. I don't know if I subscribe to that theory or not, but it's one floating out there. I lean towards no. Yeah. I lean towards no, but you better believe he's going to try to pressure him. And if not, he's going to try to do something to where he forces Jerome Powell. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm not a Fed.
I know what it looks like from Trump. Trump's going to demand it and threaten. He's going to say, Jerome, but if he really wants Jerome Powell to cut interest rates, we know how Trump operates.
No, I'm saying
he's going to name call.
Outside of using the Fed, how can he and his cabinet influence interest rates outside of the Fed?
I get what you're saying, but I think, in my opinion, I think that if Donald Trump is sitting in a room saying we have to bring down interest rates, I don't think he's going to come up with some big plan to crash the economy and then coerce him by the charts. Like, no, if Donald Trump is sitting in a room, he's like, we got to cut interest rates. He's going to get in front of a microphone and be like, Jerome Powell, I will fire you.
Jerome,
I will replace you. Do what you're stupid. Do what America wants. That's what you're going to get. And so I don't think for a minute that Donald Trump is going to be fearful of having a conversation with Jerome Powell. I don't think he's going to be fearful of the repercussions for calling out Jerome Powell. He's done it before. He's already called names to Jerome Powell in the past. When Jerome Powell didn't move rates like he liked in the last presidency in 2018, he called him stupid and all kinds of other names. So to think that he's going to quietly crash the market so that way in hopes that Jerome Powell will no way. If he wants Jerome Powell to cut rates and he thinks it's the best idea for the country and he wants it, he's going to get in front of a microphone and demand it one way or another. That's how that dude operates. I did want to give a little love to the chat. Got a lot of new people here. We got Eugene, Soda Pop, PC, Purple, Oliver, Lolita, Melissa, Kishan, Ben, Christy, Port N, Trey, D, not you, F Bro, Tim R, L Mike, Nova, Roger X, Seabass, Stan, Tofan, Giga. Also, we got John D put in a 1 in the chat. Also, Wyatt also said 1. So they were mentioning earlier that they think that Bitcoin will outperform ETH, but Christian and XP said 2. So interesting. It was pretty. It was a little bit more BTC than ETH. So a lot of people are siding with me here on this one.
Wow.
David. Also,
how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes me feel validated and correct. That's right.
Wow.
Also, Nathan. He gave a $20 super chat. He said, "You said his favorite word."
If I say it again, every time I say it, we give another $20 because we could spend the next hour pay my mortgage off with just that one word. All jokes aside, thank you all very much for your
and
support.
So to all of you, all the new people, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Rob, there is one country that has capitulated.
What's that?
Caved in, given up.
What's that? No, they bought yesterday.
Read the headline.
I know what the headline says.
I also after I pulled this headline, I also saw that they had bought one, but I don't know.
Yeah, they literally went against the IMF and bought more Bitcoin.
So then what are you trying to say? This article is not true?
No, I think they're just like, yeah, we'll stop buying. Sure, whatever you want. Keep buying.
I don't know.
That's exactly what
maybe that was an order they couldn't cancel.
Exactly what it did.
Either way, I don't know. As the IMF, and here's the thing too. Here's the interesting thing: the IMF is essentially the World Bank, right? The International Monetary Fund. But guess who is the number one funder of the IMF? It is the United States of America. And so they have a lot of sway over the people that run the IMF and obviously some of their policies. And so could we see a shift in this narrative of countries? And how many countries realistically, right? The US is in a favorable position because they have the power of the printer. Other countries, no other country has that. If they do, their country faces hyperinflation and essentially a death spiral. But how many countries are we looking at that borrow money from the IMF that know they can't have a public positive stance on Bitcoin or even do anything with Bitcoin? And if that narrative changes, what kind of trickle-down effect
How long
is
is
that
it going to
have?
last? The U.S. is about to start a strategic reserve. And what is the buys that El Salvador is doing? The buys are for a strategic reserve. And so how could you, in any kind of practical matter, make an argument to say, like, hey, El Salvador, you're not allowed to buy Bitcoin. U.S., you cool? Go on, bro.
Well, the U.S. is not asking the IMF for money, right?
But we know
it's
the IMF is their strongest partner, ally, borrower, participant, whatever the hell you want to call it, is the United States.
Funder.
Yeah. So, massive influence. I mean, how could you make an argument that you can't accumulate BTC when the United States is not only the largest, holder of BTC outside of Satoshi? I mean, and they're about to buy more, and they're about to set up a strategic reserve. Makes no sense to me.
Okay. And then we have this as well. This might be the reason why. Oh, there we go. Oh, does that say? No, it doesn't say. Okay, I mean,
Audience has zero idea.
yeah, we're looking at. Rocco pulled up the IMF chart of countries that borrow money. I was curious how much the United States, El Salvador, $35.9 billion, correct? Yeah. So El Salvador, total credit outstanding as of the 31st of January is around $131 billion. So it's a lot of money. And again, it'll be interesting to see if we get any shakeup there at the IMF. Now, AVE, as Rob showed earlier, is the number one gainer on the 24-hour, kind of going against the trend here. As you can see, everything else is red outside of AVE and maybe a couple, okay? And I think this has partly to do with it. AVE proposes major tokenomics update. So what is it going to benefit? Well, one key point is the creation of the AVE Finance Committee, the AFC, and we're not talking about the NFL either, which would manage the protocol's reserves and coordinate financial strategies. Its responsibilities would include executing a buyback program for the AVE token with a budget of $1 million per week for 6 months. The initiative aims to reduce the number of tokens allocated to liquidity incentives, progressively replacing them with direct market purchases. So buy pressure coming in for the AVE token. We've been bullish on AVE for a while. I'm still bullish on AVE. It's the number one DeFi protocol, not just on ETH, but in the entire space, I believe. And so I think this obviously, to me, has people bullish. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've
$1 million a week for 6 months.
we talk about a few projects, and we don't nail them all, but there's a few projects that we just repeatedly bring to the table here as what we're behind and what we're purchasing with our own personal portfolios. AVE, Cardano, HBAR, ICP Caspa, Bitcoin, it's in Stellar Lumens, XRP. Those are the ones that we're routinely buying. Like, are all of those up right now? A couple of them aren't, but those are the ones that we pick, right? Those are the ones that are leading the charge. There's other assets that we hold as well. But those are the ones that we're the most bullish on this bull market. And time again, we keep seeing these narratives like, hey, this one's up. Look at HBAR, man. Look at Stellar and XRP and the move that they've had more recently in the last 6 months, the last 3 months. And so, yeah, we're bullish on it, bro.
Bullish. Also bullish on the show is over. We'll be doing another show, our PM stream, which focuses strictly on TA and FA. That'll be going live there at 4:45 p.m. Pacific, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. Also, if you're not subbed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, have your notification bell on, because we also do random shows. Because if the markets tank, we turn the cameras on. The markets are rallying for some strange reason, then we'll turn the cameras on again. And also, we are currently doing a trading competition where we're giving away $300 every single Monday, and then another close to $1,000, over $1,000 at the end of the 4 weeks. And we have 2 weeks left. We've already paid out $600 to 2 winners. It goes based off of ROI, not trading volume or anything like that. The only barrier to entry is you got to use the link to sign up. That link is in the description. And then you got to hit 100K in trading volume, which is like 10 trades. So it's really not that big of an entry. And with that being said, Rocco, thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate every one of you. Also, big thank you to MATIC breaking down the charts. Make sure to come back later this afternoon for the PM stream. If not, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then.
Sin City, crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Named according to your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya.